Welcome to another episode of Farm to Table Northern Ontario. I'm your host, Chef Craig Young, and today we'll be in the Chelmsford area taking a view at Black Juniper Farms and Green Zone Farm, and we're going to be making an elk and bacon burger with pico de gallo and kale chips. Check it out. Here we are at Black Juniper Farms with Niko.
So I'm Niko, and I own and operate Black Juniper Farms in Chelmsford. Black Juniper Farms is a small yet very intensive farm that focuses primarily on specialty vegetables, lettuce, some cut flowers, things like that. Most of our farming that we do here is done quite intensively as compared to traditional farms, and we do this to achieve a much higher yield but using a much smaller footprint. So as you can see here, we have a little bed of carrots, which traditionally people would maybe do one row every 18 inches or so, whereas we're doing 6 rows 4 inches apart or something like that. That allows us to get really nice baby carrots without having to waste a bunch of space and while maintaining amazing quality, basically.
The darkness of the soil, is that how you found it, or is this largely because you've been working it with others?
Absolutely. So it's extremely sandy soil here. It's almost pure sand.
Yeah.
Like if you dig maybe...
But there's a lot of good organic matter in there
100%.
from what I can see.
So what we've done is we use a lot of compost.
Yeah.
So we make some of our own. That's actually kind of behind right here.
Okay.
It takes a while, but it is worth it. So this is kind of our this is our older beds. These are 3 years old, so right from the beginning. And further out, that's kind of our newer plots.
What have we got here? Is this different kinds of kale?
Yeah, so this is a trio of kales actually. So there's the white Russian right here. So that's got the white stems. There's red Russian, which has got the purple stems. And then there's a new one, which is a top secret kind in the same family, but it actually has a nice bright maroon colored
This is actually sweet.
Yeah, and the leaves are they're almost leathery. They have that nice, they're not...
But they break down really
absolutely
easily. And you start thinking you have to cook the kale to be able to eat it, but this is...
Yeah, that's exactly...
It would be
like regular kale,
it.
I'm not actually a fan of, but this has a superior flavor, in my opinion.
Where are you finding the varietals? Those look incredible. They look so hardy.
So we get a lot of our seeds from a company in Ontario, actually, that's called William Dam Seeds.
Okay.
They have important criteria, so we always look for cold hardiness because of our super harsh climate.
Right.
Interesting colors, flavors, and disease resistance is another big one.
Do you find that there's some benefit by having, like you have the kale, you've got a couple different varieties, and you got different kinds of charge. If you have them growing together, does that give them a little bit of, does it help?
I wouldn't say necessarily it helps. It is good to keep crops mixed as opposed to just filling all one area with the same things.
Right.
But also, it just so happens to be our succession planting. So we started off with kale and chard, and then a few weeks later we put in the kale again. Just so happened to be the beds were available.
What variety of lettuce have we got here? Is that oak leaf?
It is an oak leaf, yeah. It's actually fairly new to market, this type of lettuce. It grows upright, keeps it off the ground, keeps the disease away.
These are going to be more towards the bitter greens?
No, this particular variety, very, very heat resistant. That's another thing to look for. So they stay crisp, sweet, pretty much all season. Here is with our sunflowers, we actually interplanted some lettuce. So not only do we get food out of the bed, but we're going to get nice flowers as well.
Those lettuces are going to be a little bit happier to have some cover, a little bit
absolutely.
Of canopy? Okay.
It kind of falls well that it's summertime.
Right.
And so that these sunflowers and those are the same type. They're just about 3 weeks away from each other.
Okay.
So by the time this sunflowers gets about knee high, a little bit higher maybe, the lettuce will be ready to harvest. Just go around, and then it should leave a nice, clean, weed-free middle part for the lettuces as well.
That's cool.
So this is a specific variety of pepper. They're called shishito peppers. It's a Japanese frying pepper, often used in tempura. And a fun little side kind of note that they have is that about 2% of them are spicy. So they have about a quarter the heat level of a jalapeno. But they're a little surprising when you've eaten all the other ones.
Yeah.
That are kind of, mild. But once you get it, it's surprising, but very delicious. Usually they're like...
so it doesn't crest jalapeno, it's a little...
No, oh yeah, it's below for sure.
But the surprise of it having a couple
it's kind of like
milder
eating a bunch
ones
of green peppers and then throwing in a jalapeno kind of in disguise.
I kind of like that though. It's kind of
absolutely. They're usually blistered, like either on a grill or just like a super hot skillet. Throw them in with a little bit of olive oil and sea salt or something. Last fall, we tilled this up, planted some rye, and then this year we let it grow a little too old, and then we basically take a board, crush it down, and then we'll cover it with one of those tarps that you saw over there.
Yep.
Let it sit, and basically what it does is it not only adds organic matter to the soil because we're going to cover it with compost after, but it also creates a carpet sort of that smothers the weeds even more so than the tarp.
Right.
Excellent cover crop. It'll germinate in like -2, you know,
Wow.
and in the spring it's out even when the snow is still falling. So it's extremely hardy.
What have we got here?
So this is a new crop that we're trying out this year, new variety. It's actually a baby romaine. So we tried a different variety last year, excellent success. It's basically everything you want out of a romaine. A nice blanched center with a nice sweet interior, tender leaves, holds really well in the fridge, but they only get about yay big, though they have the weight of a full-size romaine.
Okay.
So it's kind of like I get to put more romaine in the patch instead of having fewer giant romaines. And the taste is better. They're a little bit more resistant to disease. Really,
do they fill out much more, or are they pretty close to?
Oh, they fill out much more. Yeah, they'll get to be about that size. They weigh, I think last year they weighed about 1.5 pounds or something like that.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Most romaine is actually about 3 times the size as what you would normally picture it. It's just when they harvest it in the field, like in California and stuff like that, they just take out the middle. They're huge.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'd only be able to get maybe 2 rows, whereas we're getting 4 in here.
Nice.
So that's like, you know, close to 200 lettuces in such a small footprint. You can't really beat that. That's what we want. Lots in a small space that taste good and that look nice. That's actually a red Boston there. Red Boston lettuce. Boston lettuce, pretty hard to find in the stores. Doesn't ship well. Very delicate.
Yeah.
Usually you get them the hydroponic and the little clams there.
Yeah.
But they're very small. So we get these, you know, good size. You know, maybe 10 inches wide. They have to be a little further away, but you can't really beat that creamy, you know, creamy center, tender leaves.
So it's looking like you're doing okay for pest problems. I mean, how do you control that? It looks like you're not using pesticides. So what's your methodology?
So the majority of our kind of pest control, I guess you could say, involves both rotating crops, specific varieties, and just the diversity of the farm. So a traditional farm growing lettuce may have 5 acres of nothing but lettuce for miles and miles, all the same kind, all put in at the same time, and the chances of a disease happening are much higher. Kind of like people, same idea. The more you are, the more packed you are, the higher there are chances of disease. Whereas if you diversify, you know, radishes, lettuce, carrots over here, and blah, 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 pests that like carrot may dislike lettuce or vice versa. So it keeps them away from each other, as well as kind of keeps them from becoming severe.
So are you going to be able to harvest this, like nip it at the base and have it come again?
Yeah, so the way that we harvest it is like I'll just come around with a bucket, a knife, and some gloves or whatever. You just kind of grab it like this around the waist and then cut it 3 inches from the top.
Okay.
And then it'll regrow completely twice.
So the stuff that remains at the bottom almost gives you like a protective layer for the new stuff to come in?
All you need really is just like the middle part, kind of the heart, because they grow all from that central stalk. Like a romaine lettuce or something might not necessarily work if you cut it too low, whereas this is kind of like you'd have to cut it almost at the soil line to get it too low. So we'll get 2, sometimes 3 in the shoulder season, spring and fall, sometimes even 4 cuts off of 1. So it's amazing yield. Customer favorite, really, this particular green lettuce.
Yeah. Well, it's been really good getting to visit you here, Niko. You got a wonderful operation, colorful, wonderful varieties available. Looking forward to see how you get through this summer and continue to offer these wonderful products.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys coming. I think that what you guys are doing with the whole Farm to Table group and everything is very important. And not only that, but it seems to be taking off in different directions that maybe weren't intended and that are actually great. So thank you guys all very much.
We're here at Chelmsford's Green Zone Farms with Mike Soenens.
My name is Mike Soenens, and I've been here since 1986. And in the early 90s, I was looking for livestock to kind of work or complement with what we were doing. So I started feeding some beef, and then we changed into red deer. Originally started with about, there was 17 bred females that had been imported from New Zealand. And we added to the herd, we bought more red deer, and then at one point we started bringing in elk.
So, Mike, I've known you for over 2 years now, and I've worked with your elk, and I can say from firsthand experience as someone consuming it and cooking it and preparing it that I've been really happy with your elk. What do the elk eat? What do the red deer eat?
Well, all my deer, like whether they're red deer or the elk, they're basically on the same diet. They actually have trees that they chew on.
Sure.
Because that's
naturally what they do.
Summertime they graze. We've got 90 acres basically fenced here. I would guess about 60 to 70% of their diet in the summertime is potatoes. And in the wintertime, that would go up to about 80% of their diet is potatoes. We got into an agreement with basically 4 of the bigger potato producers in the valley here.
Sure.
And we provide a service. Now we take their rejects away. And the rejects, basically, they're deformed or they're bruised or
Sure.
they have a cut in them. It's not that there's anything wrong with them. It's just that they, like Loblaws or Independent, don't want them in their bag.
Understood. Well, that's a three-way win. The elk are eating well. They get to get rid of the product that's a liability for them, and you get the benefit of having great food to bolster their diet.
It's a normal way that farmers have always done things. I consider farmers being the biggest recyclers in the world and the oldest recycler. Manure, all the organics usually gets composted or reapplied by land.
And you make some of that available to other farmers as well. I've seen that within the group.
Yeah, we've started selling some composted manure and some.
Sure.
Yeah, years ago, there was a new farm started up in the area, and one of the city staff went on a tour there, and we had our agricultural advisory committee at the time, and Jason came back and he says, "Hey, I went and visited this place. They do this way." He even showed us the tiller that he uses. And I looked at Jason and I said, "Why do you get excited over a tiller? It is the worst piece of equipment for soil health that you can ever put in soil." Mm-hmm. And Jason looked at me, he says, "Why would you say that?" I said, "Because it destroys the natural soil particles. It takes them from a natural size, and it doesn't break it naturally where the weak links are. It actually splits it."
Okay.
And that's why you end up with some soils where you look at somebody's garden and it looks like cement after it rains.
No biodiversity in it.
Well, the soil structure has been destroyed, and it'll take a long time for it to come back but that's over mechanical.
Okay. Disking and just processing too much.
Yeah.
So actually, back in 95, 96, I was working with the Ministry of Natural Resources on an elk project and taking a look at those, and those animals were significantly larger than what we're seeing over there, although they look identical to me.
You're right. A pure elk, a really good animal, would probably be 25% bigger than what we have. But we, at this point, don't really have what I would consider 100% pure elk.
Okay.
They're basically crossbred. Okay. Pure elk were not doing well in mixed with the red deer.
So the breeding, like, that's something that they're doing naturally. That's where they've arrived at, and they look like a really cohesive group.
Yeah, they're doing good now. There's no heavy pecking order like we had before. In the fall you always have the disputes between the male, like the mature males, but
sure.
that's part of nature. So.
Yeah, and the territoriality of a totally wild elk, much larger area that they're accustomed to ranging, whereas here, what have we got? 90
I got 90 acres fenced in here. So.
They look really comfortable with that amount of space. Mike, thanks so much for your time today here at Green Zone Farms. Opportunities for us at the farmers market to have your products available. And currently, I personally, if you check my Facebook profile and Instagram, I do actually have some retailability of your products. I've been working with it for a while, and I'm really a big fan. Mike, you have a page as well.
Yeah, basically we've set up a web page, Green Zone Farms with an s.ca. And at this point, it's more of a marketing page. We're not doing sales on it right now, but it does give some information. And people are always welcome to contact us. We do have the product advertised on Facebook. And I always recommend to people to call ahead because we're not manning a retail outlet. We basically just meet people as need be. And thanks for having me.
Super glad that we got to spend that time with you. And of course, you can take a look at my profile to be able to find Mike's products. And that's exactly what we're doing. I've got his stickers on the product and I'm just making it available to anyone from the group and from abroad. Let's get that elk out there. It's a wonderful product, and have a great day. We're doing the burger and chips episode. We're featuring 2 local farms and one a little further away. You can see the bacon and the elk, and we'll talk about those more in a moment. We've got a couple of buns, brioche buns from the grocery store, some green onions, tomato, beautiful greens, and shishito peppers. I'm going to do something called pico de gallo. I'm going to do it today using these green onions, the tomato, and the shishito peppers. If I don't find that I've got the heat that I want, I do have one organic black jalapeno that I'll add to the recipe at that point. All right, so we're going to start out by doing the pico de gallo. I'm going to need at least half this tomato. You want to go with like 1/4-inch slices and then just go through it like so. Tomato, get it in there. After I put the tomato in, I get some sea salt, a good 3-finger pinch. You want that to actually start to break down the tomato just a little bit. And now I can chop up the green onion. The shishitos should have a little bit of punch to them, but they do have the occasional mildness, and I just want to have a little bit of heat to it. And the onion whites have that. And then we're adding the green onion, and just give it a bit of a mix. Let it get started to break down. Shishitos, I don't want them all to be perfect rings. I also don't want them to be chopped up super fine. And in go the peppers. Last but not least, I have a little bit of avocado oil. Really don't need a lot of it. Get a bit more salt now. When you're doing salsas, bruschetta, pico, you would be surprised how much salt it actually takes to make it taste the way you want it to. But there you go, and that's going to sit on the side until we're ready with the rest of the burger components. A lot of people have tried this. I haven't, so new to me. I'm going to try making kale chips. I did cut off the stems to put those to compost, and we're going to cut these up centimeter and a half slices across the stem. And our fryer we've got at 325. Always be careful when you're deep frying. Start out with a couple pieces first, see how it turns out. If you like the way it does, then you'll know what to do with a larger batch. And it seems like it's probably going to take about a minute. The oil in this container is below the halfway point, and when I put this in, it's going to come up fairly high. I've actually got something that I will be using to season the burgers. Not much. Oh yeah, those look nice. Kale chips. So the elk from Green Zone Farms, I get this in the freezer for a couple hours. I can just barely put my thumb into it. It's a shoulder roast, almost no fat, less than 1% from what I can see, very lean. Since there's no fat, and every good burger should have about 20% fat in it. So to achieve that and also add some wonderful smoky flavor, we're going to be putting in some side bacon. So we're going to start doing the patties. We've got the elk. It's a bit firm, and that's what you want. So basically I've got almost 1/3 of the weight of the elk in bacon, and I guess half of that third ends up being fat, give or take. For now, what we're doing is really thin. This is thawing as it sits on the cutting board. I don't really want to have it completely thawed out because then it would just be sliding back and forth on the cutting board. So it's going to start looking like this. Basically, once you get all your nice thin slices, you want to go through that like so. Once you get through it like so. And you do that for a couple minutes until you get a nice consistency of chopped up. And you're going to put that into a mixing bowl and continue adding the rest of the ingredients until we get the blend that we like. A little bit of cohesion by working this meat is going to be good. The lean elk is now finally getting blended in with this nice smoky, streaky bacon. So the patties, you want to get these, I like them to be nice 5 ounce. So tear off a chunk, put it in your scale, 5.0, that's what we want. We're going to do something called smash burger. So I'm going to take a little bit of the bacon fat and just get a little bit of across the griddle. You don't need a lot of this, it's just so that it doesn't stick too much. For this application, you do want it to stick. So, get that on there, take a look at your time. In 1 minute, I'm going to use the smash technique to form the burger. But what's happening in the interim is we've actually got a caramelization starting. The bacon is melting, lubricating the pan. As it does that, we actually want to see pockets of the fat sort of melt out. It creates voids. Put a little bit of seasoning, and that's how the salt goes all the way through. So I don't put a lot of salt in the burger. With the bacon, you especially don't need it, but even if I'm doing plain ground, it's an old crepe pan, probably about 8-inch round, and I've got a bumper hitch on it. Gives me a good spot to hold on to. Count to 10. Get that smashed down. Really straightforward. So, it goes about 2 minutes the way they are. And you can actually see it starting to melt now, so I'm going to get the seasoning on it. Just a basic salt, pepper, garlic, onion powder. This is from an elk roast. It's not from grocery store scraps or anything. So you decide you want to do yourself a rare burger, go ahead. It's up to you. I'm going to do this a little bit past medium. Alright, so we're going to flip these burgers. And get that nice crust underneath there. Beautiful. And here. A little bit of a press down, not much. Don't want to squeeze juices out, and that's that. So we're going to go about 2 more minutes, and they're done. Alright, so we've got all the components assembled here. We've got the pico de gallo with the shishito, the green onion, tomatoes. We've also got the, my kids call it the all sauce. Mayo, mustard, ketchup, a little bit of diced onion, and a little bit of diced dill pickle. Beautiful greens here from Niko at Black Juniper, and Mike Soenens elk with the Martin's Country Market bacon. These are just off the griddle, ready to go. Here's how I do the assembly. Sauce the bottom, sauce the top. I'm going to put a little bit of greens. Shame on me, I'm going to do things a bit different. I'm going to put this on the bottom. And we'll get these stacked up on top. Now, the tricky part. Do you put it onto the burger patty or do you put it onto the bun? I think I'm going to put it on the bun. That should be good. And now for our kale chips. Got to be careful handling these. These are going to shatter on you. Niko and Mike, you guys really outdid yourselves with your ingredients, so really, this is just a straightforward, simple usage of those ingredients, and man, that looks pretty sharp. All right. It's so good. You guys gotta try this. Get a hold of Niko and get a hold of Mike. Get out to the farmer's market. Get some of this stuff. Also, get yourself some farm to table merch. I know the wife and I are gonna have supper now. Thanks for watching, and most importantly, thanks for supporting your local farmers. Check out our Instagram and our Facebook, and of course our YouTube channel for full recipes and additional content. And be sure to check out your Farm to Table Northern Ontario merch. Get some today. We got t-shirts, hoodies, hats, whatever you need. We've got it. Take care. Thanks for tuning in.